One of the defining staples of any Western is the iconic showdown. So let's rewind through the genre's history and count down the top 20 most unforgettable Western standoffs ever put on screen. And if you love Wild West history and movies, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. At number 20, we start with Young Guns 2, where Billy the Kid faces off with John Chisholm over an unpaid debt of $500. When Chisholm refuses to settle up, Billy makes sure everyone notices. What follows is a tense and explosive confrontation, with Billy vowing to kill one henchman for every $5 he's owed, all without ever drawing a gun. The scene perfectly captures the outlaw's trademark mix of arrogance and cleverness. As expected, Billy comes out ahead, thanks in no small part to a little backup from his gang. Coming in next is The Big Gun Down, an often overlooked spaghetti western featuring Lee Van Cleef as Jonathan Corbett, a bounty hunter sent after a Mexican outlaw known for his deadly knife skills. But once Corbett discovers the man has been falsely accused, he allows him a shot at revenge against the true villain. What follows is a duel unlike any other, showcasing blades instead of bullets, all set against an electrifying Ennio Morricone score. Justice is finally delivered, in the most literal sense, straight between the eyes. At number 18, we arrive at Silverado, showcasing the climactic duel between the noble Peyton and the corrupt Sheriff Cobb. As a clear nod to the golden age of westerns, the face-off unfolds on the deserted street of a frontier town, tumbleweeds rolling through the dust. The inevitability of the moment hangs heavy. Not only do we, the audience, anticipate what's coming, but even the characters seem resigned to it, exchanging farewells before the tension snaps. The scene concludes in a blaze of gunfire, punctuated by a soaring orchestral score that seals its place as a classic. At number 17, we turn to Open Range, where cowhands Boss Spearman and Charlie Waite find themselves with no choice but to confront ruthless rancher Denton Baxter and his men directly. The film carefully builds to this boiling point, the pressure mounting until there's nowhere else to go. In a masterstroke from director Kevin Costner, expectations are shattered when Charlie coldly admits, "You're the one who killed our friend." That's right, I shot the boy too, and I enjoyed it. In an instant, the supposed standoff erupts into a brutal, all-out, town-wide gunfight. With inventive camera work and razor-sharp sound design, the chaos feels raw, immediate, and unforgettable. Following that, we have The Grand Duel, a lesser-known spaghetti western gem that lives up to its name. The finale pits the merciless Saxon brothers against Sheriff Clayton, brought to life by Lee Van Cleef. The sequence plays out as both homage and crescendo, filled with Leone-inspired shots, operatic music, and an explosion of violence where, ultimately, everyone pays the price in lead. At number 15, we have Quigley Down Under, featuring the climactic face-off between sharpshooter Matthew Quigley and his former employer Elliot Marin, who's finally had enough of Quigley interfering in his schemes. Believing he has the upper hand, Marin hands Quigley a revolver, taunting, "I seem to recall you're not too familiar with Colonel Colt's revolver, so this will be your first lesson." Wounded, outnumbered, and seemingly overmatched, Quigley seizes the moment to reveal a clever twist. He's no stranger to revolvers, after all. With one decisive move, he turns the tables, delivering the long-awaited downfall of his arrogant adversary. At number 14, we turn to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, where the legendary duo finds themselves face-to-face with a group of Bolivian bandits. Though they attempt to hand over the money and talk their way out, the language barrier makes negotiations impossible. Reading the room, Sundance mutters, "Can you take the two on the right?" To which Butch replies with a confession, "Kid, there's something I ought to tell you. I never shot anybody before." Sundance fires back, "One hell of a time to tell me." With the odds stacked against them, the scene captures the film's trademark blend of danger and humor, forcing the pair to prove their deadly reputation once again. Up next is The Quick and the Dead. Since the entire film revolves around a dueling tournament, there's no shortage of standoffs to choose from, but none hit harder than the final duel between Sharon Stone's Lady and Gene Hackman's ruthless John Herod. The ruined town becomes their stage for a battle charged with both emotion and spectacle. Director Sam Raimi pulls out every cinematic flourish, dynamic camera work, rapid cuts, and heightened tension, before culminating in a visually bold and satisfyingly over-the-top resolution to the movie's central conflict. At number 12, we have The Big Country, a western that follows an Eastern Sea captain who journeys west to marry the daughter of a wealthy rancher, only to discover that life on the frontier follows a code of honor completely foreign to him. When he's inevitably pushed into a traditional duel, he outright refuses to play by the rules, intentionally undermining the very idea of a Western standoff. The result is a bold and thought-provoking subversion, turning the scene into one of the most striking and meaningful shootouts ever filmed. At number 11, we move to The Magnificent Seven with another unforgettable James Coburn moment, this time as Britt. Early in the film, he's challenged by an arrogant rival who barks, "Get up! Get up! Britt calmly obliges, exuding such unshakable confidence that his opponent starts to second-guess himself. In an instant, Britt's razor-sharp reflexes prove deadly, showcasing his unmatched skill with a knife and cementing his reputation as one of the coolest and most dangerous members of the Seven. If you've made it this far, you're clearly a fan of westerns, so give this video a like. It really helps us out. At number 10, we arrive at Django, where the wounded gunslinger faces his darkest moment in a bleak graveyard, preparing for what looks like his last stand against Major Jackson and his men. With Django battered and broken, Jackson toys with him as though he's a crippled animal, leaving the audience certain that it's over. But just when all hope seems lost, Django unleashes his cunning, turning the tide and killing Jackson in a stunning reversal. Exhausted, he limps away from the cemetery, proving once again why Django remains one of the most iconic and enduring anti-heroes in spaghetti western history. Next, we come to Unforgiven, with its unforgettable final confrontation between reformed outlaw William Money and the cruel sheriff Bill Daggett. Severely outnumbered and heavily outgunned, Money makes his intentions chillingly clear. He's there to kill anyone in his path. And I'm here to kill you, little Bill. But just as he pulls the trigger, his shotgun misfires, forcing a savage, chaotic shootout. Money ultimately prevails, but the scene never paints him as a triumphant hero. Quite the opposite. The duel serves as a grim, fitting conclusion to a story about the heavy cost of violence and the brutal truths of the frontier. At number 8, we have Shane, featuring the iconic duel between Alan Ladd's stoic hero and Jack Wilson, the deadly gunslinger portrayed by Jack Palance. The two stand as mirror images, one embodying the reluctant protector, the other a ruthless killer, destined to clash because there can be no peace while both remain. The standoff is taut with silence, every pause thick with tension, until it finally erupts in a flash of violence. It's a showdown that feels monumental, cementing its place as one of the genre's most legendary moments. At number 7, we arrive at The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, centered around the showdown that gives the film its title. Here, the honorable lawyer Ransom Stoddard faces the brutal outlaw Liberty Valance. On one side stands law, order, and ideals, on the other, brute force and intimidation. That moral contrast gives the duel weight far beyond a standard shootout. When Stoddard unexpectedly kills Valance, the event reshapes the lives of everyone involved while driving home the film's deeper theme, that history often favors a comforting legend over an uncomfortable truth. At number 6, we have Tombstone, featuring the unforgettable duel between Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo. Expecting to square off against Wyatt Earp, Ringo is visibly shaken when the frail but deadly Doc steps out instead, coolly declaring, "I'm your Huckleberry." The twist strips away Ringo's swagger in an instant as both he and the audience realize this is truly a showdown between the film's two fastest guns. The tension builds until Holliday proves quicker on the draw, delivering a swift, brutal end to one of the movie's most notorious villains. Next, we have A Fistful of Dollars, where Clint Eastwood's mysterious drifter Joe emerges from near death to confront the ruthless Ramon and his men. At first glance, the duel seems hopelessly lopsided, but Joe turns the tables with cunning. Hidden beneath his poncho is improvised body armor, rendering Ramon's repeated shots useless. Each failed attempt ramps up the suspense, accentuated by Ennio Morricone's eerie score and Eastwood's unshakable presence. When the moment finally comes, Joe dispatches Ramon with flawless precision, solidifying both Eastwood's legend and Sergio Leone's status as a master of the genre. At number 4, we have High Noon, home to one of the most iconic showdowns in cinema history. The entire film methodically builds toward this tense encounter between Marshal Will Kane and outlaw Frank Miller, who is promised to return at noon to settle the score. As the clock ticks down, the dread intensifies, with Kane ultimately abandoned by the very townsfolk he's sworn to protect. The final standoff captures his isolation and crushing duty, ending in a stark, no-frills shootout filled with sudden turns. Kane's victory is anything but triumphant, leaving behind a haunting reminder of the cost of justice. Up next, we have For a Few Dollars More, delivering one of the most deliberate and suspense-filled duels in Western history. Here, Colonel Douglas Mortimer, portrayed by Lee Van Cleef, squares off against the ruthless bandit El Indio, played by Gian Maria Volonté. The standoff is unforgettable for its use of a musical pocket watch, its eerie melody ticking away the seconds until the guns are drawn. Sergio Leone heightens the tension with his trademark extreme close-ups, capturing every flicker of resolve and every nervous twitch. When the final chime sounds, Mortimer strikes with lightning speed, taking down El Indio in a duel that isn't just about vengeance, but about honor, closure, and redemption. At number 2, we arrive at Once Upon a Time in the West, where Charles Bronson's enigmatic harmonica faces Henry Fonda's cold-blooded Frank. The entire sequence feels like an opera in motion, every glance, every step, and every pause meticulously crafted to raise the tension higher and higher. As Morricone's haunting score swells, the truth behind Harmonica's vendetta finally comes to light, giving the duel devastating emotional weight. When Harmonica finally defeats his seemingly unstoppable enemy, it isn't just a victory, it's a cathartic release, cementing the moment as one of the genre's absolute finest. And finally, at number 1, we have the legendary Mexican standoff from the good, the bad, and the ugly. Blondie, Tuco, and Angel Eyes, having chased one another to the brink for buried treasure, find themselves in a sprawling, desolate cemetery, with only one way to settle their rivalry. Already brimming with tension, Sergio Leone elevates the showdown into cinematic history, spending nearly 5 minutes weaving together intense close-ups of faces, eyes, and hands, with rapid cuts that tighten the suspense like a vice. As Morricone's epic score crescendos, the scene explodes into action, creating not just the greatest Western showdown, but one of the most iconic moments in all of film. So when the guns finally blaze, cutting Angel Eyes down in the dust, it comes as both a massive release of tension and, in retrospect, a touch of dark comedy, especially once it's revealed that Blondie had rigged the duel from the very start. Still, this legendary three-way standoff towers above all others, widely regarded as the greatest Western showdown ever filmed. Its legacy is undeniable, with echoes of its style and tension still shaping pop culture to this very day. That said, I'd love to hear from you. What's your personal pick for the best Western showdown? Did I leave out a favorite of yours? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more Wild West history deep dives every week. Until next time, folks, thank you for listening.